Hello, friends. This presentation today is on evaluating book donations. I'm Judy Hills, the president of the Friends of the North Carolina Public Libraries, and I'm going to be your presenter today. Why does the public donate books to friends? There's many things that might go through an individual's head as he or she is looking at perhaps a bookcase that's overflowing with books at their house. And they might say, well, gee, I can't bear to throw this book away, so I'll donate it instead. Or maybe, hey, this looks way too new. I can't throw it out. Somebody might buy it. Well, I don't really want this book anymore, but hey, somebody else might. I paid a lot of money for this book, and somebody else might be able to use it. I want to support the library, so I'll donate this to the Friends of the Library for their book sale. And this generally may result in a number of inappropriate donations to friends, which we're the ones that are left to deal with them. So what can the friends do about inappropriate book donations? Well, the first thing you definitely want to do is to educate the public as to what constitutes a good donation. Now, this doesn't mean you're going to get 100% compliance, but if you never tell them what you do and don't want, you're not going to get anywhere. So you want to do this via your website. You can use your social media Facebook platform or signage at the point where they drop the books off. All these things will help. To the right is an example from our Friends of the New Bern Craven County Public Library's website. Gives the public some idea as to the things that we don't want to receive. The list is much longer than what you see right here, but that's our attempt to educate the public. And the next thing we want to do is evaluate the donations as they're received. And that's what this is about today. How do friends evaluate book donations? The first thing we're suggesting, and we're going to go into this in a minute, is to develop a written guide for those who receive and evaluate the donations. Review the sorting guide with new volunteers and with the ones that have been around for a while as well, because chances are they never really got any training on this subject. And then you may want to pair an experienced sorter with the new sorters until they get their feet wet and they can feel comfortable in doing this themselves. So to the right, you see the cover of a sorting guide for donated books that our Friends of the Library developed. Why is a guide and sorter training needed? Well, we want to ensure consistency in evaluating donated books. If you go, I know I've been in there after someone's been sorting in our storage unit, looking at what's been kept and making questions in my own mind as to, gee, why did they keep this book? We want to ensure that only the best quality sellable books go to our book sale. I got to tell you, after our last book sale, we had a very large number of books, we found that we had way too many left on the sale tables at the end. And when we looked at what was left, we realized that the vast majority of those books should have never made it to the sale tables in the first place. So then we were left with dealing with a huge number of books that had to be discarded at the end of the sale. We want to ensure that good, clean books are available for friends' projects and programs. If you run any of these, such as Little Free Libraries, book folding, craft workshops, maybe you refresh libraries at assisted living facilities or the correctional institutions and other places where you donate books or use them for projects and programs. It also decreases the time, energy, and the cost of both storing and the ultimately disposing of a large number of questionable books. I don't think anybody wants to see a dumpster full of discarded books if we can avoid it. So the first level of evaluation is condition. Books in the following condition should automatically be discarded without further consideration. You put it in your hand. If it's dirty, shabby, soil smelly, or any of the things on this list, you might just as well discard it at the outset. Missing dust covers on hardback fiction, we don't keep those. We're not putting them in our sales. If the public buying public really wants to look at the dust covers, and so we just discard the ones that don't have dust covers or use them for little free libraries. Excessive writing, markings, and highlightings. A softcover book that with a crooked or twisted spine. Again, the buying public is looking for books that are in more pristine condition, so they're not even gonna pick those up off the table. DVD or CD that does not match the case label, those should just be automatically discarded. I know at the end of the sale, when people have brought things up to at the checkout table, a lot of times we'll open up those cases and gee, the DVD or CD just isn't there at all, or it's not what's on the label. So best to deal with that as these things come in, not at the sale. So here's some pictorial examples of what we're talking about. The Bible in the upper left-hand corner. Some people just really hate throwing out Bibles, but I don't think anyone would argue that this is not something that's going to be sold. The middle one shows highlighting and writing in it. The others are example of warped spines and mildew, water damage. Some more mildew and water damage. The one to the right top is just yellowed pages. Bottom left and bottom right are something we should also look for, and that is bed bugs. We definitely don't want people to take books that have the potential to spread bed bugs. They can be really pesky to try to get rid of those once they get a hold of your, take a hold of your household. So we want to discard anything with a bed bug problem. The next level of evaluation is type and or age. Some types of things to be discarded. You're not finding anybody buying 8-track tapes, cassette tapes, or VHS tapes. And what we've found particularly is we get a lot of, let's say, language programs that you open it up and you find it's all cassette tapes. Nobody has the equipment to run those anymore. Chances of you selling them at a sale is going to be slim to none, so you might just as well go ahead and pitch them. Magazines and periodicals, you might have a different opinion about that, and certainly you can decide what you want to keep. Our friends say we do not want magazines or periodicals. We don't want catalogs. We don't want any textbooks, although I know some friends do evaluate textbooks. We don't use Reader's Digest condensed books. Some friends might. Encyclopedias, I don't care how good condition they look. They take up a huge amount of space as a set, and they're heavy, and we don't want to handle them. Advanced reading copy galleys or proofs, those legally we really shouldn't be selling, so as they come in, you should discard them. And the list in your guide might be more extensive than what I'm showing here. So more things on type and age, examples of things to be discarded based on age, reference books 5 years. We get a lot of really old, big dictionaries. Those don't sell. There's no point in packing them up and trying to sell them again the next year. So if it's older than 5 years, we throw it out when we get it. Law books 5 years, medical 5 years, health 5 years, finance only 3 years because that changes so much. Travel guides 2 years. Again, there's a lot of changes in that industry, as there is in computer and IT. 3 years is the most for those particular things. And here's some pictures of some examples of things that you might want to look at more closely. So the third level of evaluation is judgment. This requires personal judgment, and you're going to get a varying degree of agreement, shall we say, on this topic. Something that we take a close look at are children's material that's dated. Those you can easily see because they have unappealing covers and the subject matter is really old. We might have really liked the Hardy Boys, but today's boys, not so much. So we find that even putting these in the little free libraries, they just sit there and sit there and sit there, and eventually we end up throwing them out. And in truth, we get a lot of these books from discards from the library. They give them to us, but there's really not much we end up being able to do with them either. Books containing older information is no longer relevant. For example, a world atlas, old world atlases, the names have changed of countries, the boundaries have changed. That's just an example of one that has really old information. A large number of the same genre of books donated by a single individual. In our last sale, we had a man whose wife had died. She was a collector, even I'd say hoarder of romance novels. She had boxed them up, and we got and I'm not kidding, a storage unit that was filled with romance novels. We should never accepted them in the first place. We tried to sell them. We could only sell maybe, I'd say, 5% of what she gave us because of just the huge volume of books that we had. So, if you're getting a big collection from the same individual, you need to take a look at what you're getting and decide just how much of that you're willing to keep. A large number of the same copies of books. We've had teachers who have gotten out of the teaching business, and they were the lower grade teacher, and they had their own libraries in their classroom, and they would bring in large number of copies of the exact same book. It's okay if it's, let's say, a chapter book that's popular, but if it's 15 copies of a third grade math workbook, chances are you're not going to sell those. So you might just as well go ahead and throw out 12 of those and keep 3 copies. Older fiction that's not considered classics, older sports books, books that are specific to another state. Let's say we're in the state of North Carolina, so if we get one that's the wildflowers of Vermont, the chances of us selling that here in North Carolina is going to be slim to none, so we just pitch those. Your list in the guide might be more extensive, but you're never going to get a 100% list. It's just not possible. So you're still going to always require some judgment. So why might a sorter keep a book that maybe should be discarded? We need to be aware of the voices in our head. Reasons to keep, when other criteria might dictate that it be discarded, might be, golly, somebody might want this book. I can't throw it out. Wow, this was a really great book. I really liked it. Somebody else is going to want to read this. This book just looks too good to discard. Oh, I can't bear to throw this out. It was such a classic. Recipes are timeless. Everybody needs a cookbook. This is a really nice set of encyclopedias. No, I just can't throw these out. Hey, there might be some historical value to this. Oh, I can't throw this Bible out. Surely there's somebody that's going to want it. So what other thoughts can you add to this? What might go through someone's head as a reason why they might want to keep something instead of something that obviously needs to be discarded? So why might the sorter discard a book that perhaps should be kept? Again, the voices in our head might go something like this. Hey, it's a subject matter. People really shouldn't be reading sexually explicit material. Jackie Collins writes really trashy novels. I don't think anybody should read her. The Left Behind series has been around for a long time. That's really old news. I'm going to start throwing those out. I don't believe in such things. For example, using crystals for healing or tarot card reading. This goes against my beliefs. Let's say we're Christian and we hopping across the copy of the Quran, and so the tendency might be to want to throw that out instead of putting it out for sale. Lack of knowledge about books, especially an old one. Those kind of books you may want to set aside and let somebody with more knowledge in that area take a look at them before they're just discarded. Just because they look old, there might be some value to those really old books. And what others might you add to this list? We all need to be aware of censorship. It's a suppression based on bias. The ALA champions the right to read without censorship, and I think that's something that we as friends need to be mindful of. So what do we do with the discards? No one wants to discard a book, but everything has its season, even books. So if you sort the books as they are donated, it's easier to throw out a few boxes at a time because you don't want to end up with something that looks like this picture. You will have many more discards at the end of a sale if you don't scrupulously sort and discard as you receive the donations. Yes, you're probably still going to have things you're going to have to discard. You cannot continue to store and try to sell year after year. You really have got to discard, as much as it may hurt. I know it certainly bothers me. What to do with the books at the end of the sale? Well, there's a lot of things you can try, and I'm sure your group has probably tried one or more of these as well. You could have a bag sale the last day or the last hours of the sale. You could allow a nonprofit and other community groups to select books for free, let's say on the last day or the last couple of hours of a sale. We have contacted assisted living facilities to see if they wanted any books, and we would pick out a selection and deliver 6 boxes of books to a given assisted living facility after the sale. We keep a small number that we think we might be able to sell in the future, but we only have limited storage, so we're very scrupulous about the ones that we select. We might try to sell the remainder to a bookseller, but we believe that that's getting harder and harder to do these days. And we need to discard whatever is left at the very end. It's less stressful to pay to have somebody dispose of these than it is to ask our friends to do it. I think it's hard for them to throw a book away. So in the past, we have actually paid somebody to come deal with those books for us. The final thoughts, consider selling books online. Some groups have been very successful and have gotten a fair amount of money from selling books online. Use websites to determine whether or not an older book might be valuable, or one of those coffee table books that you get. Identify, again, one or more sorters with special expertise with questionable books and put them aside for evaluation. For example, the 1953 book on slide 12, Home Baking Made Easy, it actually sells for $13 on Amazon. So, although that definitely was an older looking book, it still had some degree of value, more than, the $1.50 that you might have gotten for it at the sale. So I've given you some resources that you can Google for additional information. If you're watching this via YouTube, you're not going to be able to access this, but if you'll go on our website, you can actually click on the links on the PDF copy there. You can request a copy of the sorter guide or the sorter training PowerPoint that we've developed from me, and that's my email address. It's also on our FONCPO website. You can get it there. And so the last thing I want to remind you about is celebrating your sorters. Everybody acknowledges the people that work your book sale, but those sorters work a lot behind the scenes. They have a lot of responsibility. It's a lot of work. And they work all year long preparing books for the sale. So be sure and celebrate your sorters and thank them for the work that they do. And with that, I hope this gave you some food for thought, and that if you don't have a written sorting guide, that you would develop one, and that you will consider training your sorters so that they are all fairly consistent in how they address the books that you do receive as donations. Thank you for watching today, and good luck.